are live. Welcome to
We are?
Co-op Guild.
Oh my gosh! Steve, someday I'm gonna figure out that the stuff on the phone is not the right number because it covers up the other
We
number.
do this almost every week.
I know. You think I'd get it right someday? We're just talking about this. This is opposing. We decided this is probably one of the most awkward components to a board game of all time.
That's right.
Hi, everyone.
But welcome everybody. This is Co-op Guild, or as often as we can, live chat talking about various board game topics, generally a cooperative focus. So we've got Bairnt and myself who are regulars here, but we have someone new. So we have Marcel, who actually has a YouTube channel, Story Tiles. If you don't know about it, go check it out. There's really good stuff out there. But I want to have Marcel on here because he was the one that suggested this topic. I thought it'd be kind of fun to have you chat with us. So welcome, Marcel.
This is a high five to Derrick.
Well, everyone watching the screen, you're like tapping your name. He's on.
This is very confusing.
There you go. That's the way. That's the high five.
I'll get this right one day. Hi, guys.
I'm like in a box.
You're miming.
I would never be a good mime because I talk too much.
Okay, but yeah, welcome. So, got lots of friends here. Oh, by the way, Yogi, I started with a natural 20. That was insane for the boss battle. It was really cool to see. So, let's see. Elaine here. Dan's here. Welcome. Let's see what we got. Chris. Let's see. What else am I missing here? Kim's here. Hey, Kim. Hey, Frederick. Nice to see you here. And Robin, of course. Joe. Nice. Lots of friends. Lots of friends here. All right. So, what are we talking about today? Actually, Marcel, how about you introduce this, since you're the one that brought up the topic?
Yes, I did. If only I could remember what it was again. Oh, right. First editions and second editions. And the pros and cons, and why we like him or not, or any other thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was a really interesting topic, because I know there's a lot of times where I've heard people say both good and bad things about first and second editions, right? So I've got some talking points we can dive into that I might.
It's funny you should mention your talking points, Steve. That was.
Wait, show everyone your talking points.
I have talking points too. So I messaged Steve and I go, "Hey, Steve, will you do co-op chat today?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we'll do co-op chat. What do you want to do?" I'm like, does anybody have a really good thing?" He's like, "Oh, actually, I got a really good one. We'll do this." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds really awesome." I go, I hope it's not last minute because I messaged him kind of yesterday, and he goes, "No, I just got to get my talking points ready." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got to get talking points too." Got him, nailed him right here. Here's my talking.
It's a blank paper. Like, yep, thanks.
Super good. I didn't know he had talking points. He comes to these things with talking points. I have never done a talking point in my life.
You are a talking point, Bairnt.
That's about it. I am a talking point. Well, they call me big deal at work, so that's probably why.
Okay, so in case people aren't familiar with what we're talking about first and second editions, let's probably like lay that out a little bit clearer here. So, oftentimes games will be released with a rule set, and then usually, not always, but usually like a year later, or maybe even weeks after you get the product, depending on how it works, right? They will re-release rules updates, components updates, something to update the system. Sometimes it's called second edition, sometimes it's not. But that's what we're focused on, is one game's come out, and then based upon reception of the public as a whole, or things they discovered, or who knows what the reasons are, we can get to that in the discussion. They decide to change that game. So one thing that I kind of want to talk about, I've seen this brought up a few times, is since we've seen this happen, it's not super frequent, but it's frequent enough that this can happen in games. Does this impact your purchasing decision? If you go out there to back a game or seek out a game, do you ever feel hesitancy, like, maybe it won't back on the first round, expecting to be a second round with updates? So I'm curious what you guys think of that one.
We got Marcel. What do you think?
If I laid out my thoughts, I think we would be here until tomorrow. This would be like a marathon session. But I'm more interested in hearing what you guys think.
Today, Marcel, we're going Cliff Note style.
Cliff Notes style. Gosh, I'm old saying Cliff Notes. Yeah,
Yes,
no, I guess
rulebooks are.
the first thing that comes to mind with first and second editions, and tell me if I'm completely, off my nutter here, is that I feel that games nowadays are more and more rushed somehow. Even when it seems like their crowdfunding projects are all glossy and they look all like pretty much finished, it can sometimes really take a long time before these projects come to life, before they're actually
Yeah.
delivered. And then when they're delivered and they end up with just basic mistakes in the grammar, or a rule book that is non-legible, or the balance is not right, you truly wonder, like, how much was this in the cooker? Did they do a lot of play testing or not? Do you feel the same way about that? Is it getting worse?
I don't know if it's getting worse. I think what we're seeing, I think you have two different things here. One, it could be getting worse, and that's just the deal. And I think the problem is, it has to do with when the thing is backed and done, and then you're like, oh, I got this money to make my game. That's fantastic. And then if all of a sudden the costs start piling up, and they're like, crap, we're going to start going red. I need to get this game out. So yes, then I think it goes that way. But I think if you're coming from another thing, something like Cool Mini or not, let's say, like an established company, those are the ones I feel you're going to hopefully get a more polished and ready game, because they don't have this time constraint, I feel. Though I mean, obviously we've seen many Kickstarters say like, oh, this is coming in January 2025, and all of a sudden you get like, well, it's coming in 26. It's like, really? Okay, that's fine if that's what you need to make your game good. But then, like you said, when you get the game, you're like, why is this not good?
Right.
And it could be money constraints. It could be producer, because from what I understand, there could even be outside investors helping along with Kickstarters to get these games up and running, and they could be pushing to say like, hey, this needs to get out the door. I really think a lot of the times, especially maybe with some of these indie publishers and things of that nature, they don't seek the guidance of established people. Like, I mean, Awaken Realms is a good example of this. They have great games, great polished games. They look fantastic. You play them, but their beginnings, if you remember their rule books, were not the greatest things on the planet, right? And so it wasn't until ISS Vanguard, when they actually had Paul Grogan help them with the rule book, that they finally kind of got a rule book that was pretty good. And then in the future, now I've noticed, like, Stalker was great and had a great rule book, understood it. I mean, the thing is, I think they were trying to have you play the game as fast as you could without now saying like, oh yeah, you can learn as you play, everything's gonna be great. And you're like, that's not how a lot of people play games. They like to, I mean, some do, but most people, especially when it comes to epic huge campaign games from Awaken Realms, you kind of want to know what you're getting into when you start playing that game, right? You don't want to be like, oh, here's 2 pages of rules, that's awesome, now I just open this up and, oh, now I'm reading 90 more rules as I'm playing the first mission. I mean, why wasn't this just all the rule book? Kind of thing.
Right.
But I think that's a good, and now I think about it, I think Awaken Realms is a good example of a publisher that started and didn't really think that much into how a rule book and things are going to be written, but still be a polished company. But as they've gotten farther now, I think they've just realized and figured out how. Because I mean, honestly, I wouldn't say it could almost be like an art form. It's almost like a job in itself, getting a rule book that people can use. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Well,
and yeah, go ahead. I've been talking for a while.
no, and I want to bounce it back to Steve, but just before I do that, I do find it interesting that you bring up Awaken Realms, because personally I love Awaken Realms, like,
Mhm.
and but then again, I'm kind of broken, so I kind of flock towards broken games, if that makes sense. I like them to see them as toolboxes that I can put my own homebrewing hands on, but Awaken Realms has been around for a long time, and for a reasonably long time at least, and you would expect them to actually deliver like really good glossy rule book. So is it maybe just that they approach it as a more of an art form than as a science, then that their rule books sometimes are wonky or more esoteric than actually functionally legible? Or does that play into that as well?
Yeah, Steve, he's played so many Awaken Realm games, it's gonna blow your mind.
Yeah, well, I've got
Come on, Steve.
Stalkers from Think Bairnt, so I got to play that one. So,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
one of the
I
first
can't.
Awaken Realm games ever played. It'd be Stalker.
Yeah, probably. Well, I played a few with you, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, rulebooks are a tough breed for sure. To try to, and I've seen well, there's a playthrough, a preview I did where I can tell that the rulebook was distilled down to its core principles to try to get you with small rulebooks to get reading through it and get playing fast. But it got to the point where I struggled with this because it didn't have enough examples and didn't have enough um, depth for me to really grasp all the nuances of it. And granted, this is a preview, so that's all can be fleshed out and changed. Like one of the rule books I think is fantastic. Originally I didn't is Sword and Sorcery, and I say
Yeah,
that because it is super long and it was just hard
six,
to get through. And
I
like
want
the
to say
game
50,
honestly isn't that
65
complex.
pages, something like that. It's
Yeah,
big, big.
exactly. It's not a complex game. Well, there's a lot of rules, but it's not like super complex. It just has
Mhm.
a lot of things going on. But the thing that made me like that rule book in particular is the fact that it has so many examples in it, and oftentimes when you jump to a page, is there's normally links to or references to something else. So like, oh, I need to find this answer. I pulled. Oh, I'm like, I think it's on this page, and as I read through, it's like, oh, you might want to find out more information similar to this on these other pages. And I flip to that page, then I find my answer. So like,
Yeah,
it's very quick to like self correct itself in that sense. So I think that's fantastic.
yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard to do a good rule book.
I mean,
Um,
I think rule books when it comes to that is that's the key that they need to start doing is like when they're explaining a rule, be like, yeah, and even because again, examples are also great in rule books that some don't have. And so you're
yeah.
like, well, I don't quite get that. And then they have the example like, oh, I kind of get that. But even in the example, it says something like, oh, and then you're going to see that such and such is going to get poisoned, which you can find on page 19. I'm like, oh, page 19, if I want to look at poison again. What do you
Yeah.
got there, Steve? Awaken Realms tends to have pretty big rule books.
Bad
Bad rule
rule books.
books.
Yeah.
Bad rule books. They like we've said. I think for me personally, they've gotten better as they've gone on. I think they've realized, and I think it's like you said. I think it's they took it away from a person that was designing the game and kind of said, almost put a person next to him saying like, okay, teach me this game. I think that's kind of how you have to approach games when it comes to figuring out how to do rule books. The designer can't write the rule book. I mean, I don't know if anybody's heard of this game called Myth, but Myth is
Tell
a
me more.
great
Everyone,
game.
take a drink. You said
Exactly.
it.
The rule
We'll be
book
right back.
was a little lacking. But again, I think that kind of shows the idea of, and they put a 2.0 version out, like you're saying, because we're getting back to the topic of 1 point versus 2 point. They made the original game, then they did Journeyman, which is their second edition, which is kind of an expansion onto it. But inside that, they built like the 2.0 version of Myth as well, because they needed to reestablish kind of what the game was, because people were kind of not digging the system. Like they reestablished it. So instead of being quest cards and some of the monsters that didn't fit with the things and all these things that kind of didn't really go together, but still fun to play. They then piggybacked right back into it and said, oh, we got second edition of Myth, which comes with campaign book and a couple campaigns you can play inside the game when you buy the core game. Then it's like, oh, okay, so now you get the core game and the Journeyman and all this stuff. So was my 1.0 stuff now worthless? Or do you get that update pack? And then do you have to pay for the
Right.
update? You not pay for the update pack. I mean, that's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about.
So when does it become okay then for a 2.0, an official 2.0 to exist and you not to feel like you've kind of like wasted your money, your hard earned cash on the first edition because now the 2.0 version is there? Is it just like a level of design changes that just make it feel different, like say between Descent second edition and Descent Legends, or is just like an additional play mode, or like what the Isofarian Guard did, like where they had like the little games of chips that you move around the board, sort of like that addition? Does that make it okay then for the 2.0 version to feel like it's worth its money?
I think there's two approaches for me, for the most part. Well, maybe even three on that. So when talking about second edition, there's a couple of different reasons for a second edition. One of them could be correcting errors. Um, so that I think is 100% I'm for. Let's get that out there, right? Let's get the and these errors can happen in a lot of different ways. Where I was talking to one publisher where I can't remember what the error was exactly, but there was a misprint on some cards, or whatever, and they sent the correct they found the error early. They sent the corrected print files to the printer themselves, but for whatever reason, the printer selected the wrong files in the final run, and they sent the wrong one out. And so like stuff like that can happen, right? You can try to get the bag, you try to cross your T's, dot your I's, but things happen. And so having a second edition there to try to fix those, I'm 100% for.
Hey, Steve,
The
can I stop you for a second?
Go ahead.
I'm going to go completely off topic here. I didn't realize this till this very moment. My entire life has just come full circle, 100%. Remy B
Uh-oh.
is in your chat. If I don't know if you know this, but Remy B was one of the original people that did myth videos, and he actually discussed how every character in the game actually works. You want to know how many times I watched his videos before I recorded my myth playthrough? And not only that, myth was my very first game I did on my channel. And he, like I said, he was one of the guys that I was watching his stuff to make sure I was trying to do everything correctly in the game, because sometimes it was so badly written, I wasn't exactly sure how it all worked. He was phenomenal. He
Oh, fun.
he talked about was so good. So I've watched every video he's done on Myth, and it's absolutely amazing. So there, I all of a sudden, like, so that was like that 2018. I was watching his videos, and here I am in 2024, and he's in your chat. That's amazing.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
It's all coming
Tim,
together.
here's a perfect example. Scarlet Witch versus Scarlet Witch. Exactly. But Scarlet Witch will live on.
Yes, it's my favorite heroine, Scarlet Witch. I love her.
Witch. But so yeah, stuff like that, 100% for fixing. Now we can talk about different ways of going about.
Sorry, I
that
didn't
for
mean to
the
interrupt you,
consumer.
Steve. You're in a super important thing, and I just realized that.
No, you're good. You're good. Okay, so that was one thing. The other thing is design changes, and I think that's what Marcel was getting at a little bit. And that way, that one I have a little bit of a mixed approaches to. So there is no way you can really, or with a lot of confidence, make sure you capture your audience for this the game, right? Each game has its own audience, and you try to go out and get the right play testers and try to get it fixed and caught and everything. But until the public sees it, you don't really know, right? You can do your best to try to get a sample of what you think the public is going to get for that one. And so there needs to be enough effort, right? And I'm trying to say this right, where you've done a playtesting where you think you've got it, but there's always a chance that things will come up, and you see this all the time in not outside the board game industry. In the video games, here they get patches and stuff. I didn't expect people to have to find this weird balance in these characters, right, or whatever, or even just consumer products, right? I work in some products I build and everything, and every once in a while you have to do a software update or firmware update for whatever reason, right? So this stuff does happen. Now, when it comes to Kickstarter, though, I think Marcel, you were talking about this earlier, was a lot of times, especially in the past, Kickstarter was very conceptual. Hey, here's my idea for a game. I'm gonna try to rush this out to you, and then that's where mistakes and lack of playtesting comes out, and that's where second editions come in, and that that drives into this feel bad moment, right? I would say for consumers, like, well, I just put my give you my money because I thought this was a cool concept, and I feel like the due diligence wasn't there. I think nowadays, due to how shipping is, that is reduced because of that reason. Because now I feel like there's a big risk in having a long lead time between Kickstarter launch and delivery because the shipping costs have varied so much. You just don't know what's going to happen. You really, at this point, want to have that very short window. Now, not everyone's doing it right now, so you still have that potential, but I think that is one maybe silver lining to the shipping issue. So I'm not sure. What do you think, Marcel? Let's have you dive in here a little bit.
Well, and again, feel free to call me out if you disagree on this, but
Yeah.
I also feel like shipping has now become a substantial, not I wouldn't say barrier necessarily, but a substantial factor in whether or not you want to even buy an update pack, for
Sure.
instance, because creators, they will simply say, and to their credit, they will give a update pack for free to previous backers, with the exception that you only have to pay for shipping. Regretfully, we live in times where shipping has gone up increasingly or exponentially even. And I feel like, well, is it actually worth it then? Like, can I still play my first edition, comfortably, or will I, feel aggravated by looking at these spelling errors or a grind that exists in the game that makes me feel like I'm playing a lesser version, even though, I was previously more enthusiastic about it.
Mhm.
So those cost benefits literally come into play then, with these update packs that you only have to pay shipping for.
Mhm.
But what for example is like the last game, like big game, that you had to make that consideration for whether or not to buy an update pack because it was just either time wise it took too long for it to actually come around, and you were like, well, let me put this game on hold. That's a whole different issue. Like, do I even play this game until I get the update? Or indeed the cost. Like, does it come into effect with your decision of whether or not to get an update pack?
Yeah, the cost one is I think that is a big one. If the errors are grammatical, spelling, just like presentation level, I am of the belief that the publisher, if at all possible, should eat that cost, in my opinion, right? Like Marcelo mentioned as well. Asking to pay shipping, I'm okay with that, and generally that would be fine. If it's upgrade components and new design stuff like that, then I'm generally okay with incurring new costs. Now, depending what those updates are, of course, right? Um, I think to me, I don't think either of those, for me personally, come to play. It's more of what are the updates specifically, because sometimes I'm happy with the first edition. Sometimes I feel like I don't need the second edition, or maybe I want parts of the second edition, and so that to me is more of a purchasing factor personally. What about you, Bairnt?
Well, so here comes your next thing about the second edition parts and update packs and things like this. I haven't paid too many for many update packs at all. You want to know why?
Because you're
Because
BD.
they hide the update pack inside the next expansion or something that you're getting through Kickstarter. Like, oh, here's all
Yeah,
the new stuff. Plus, you get the update pack. Oh yeah, totally. Back now, back.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, for example, I've got uh, Harakiri right here.
yeah.
I played it, not past. Oh well, I fell down. I'll put that over here. So Harakiri is a fun game. I'm not going to play it until I get my update pack because what's the point? You know what I mean? Because that's the other. I mean, I'm opening up two bags at the same time with.
You're so mad that you're just tearing down your own place right now.
Oh
Like ripping
God!
things off of
Right?
walls. Like,
Just rip them down. So I mean, so when I backed the second part, like the extra expansion for this, which then comes with the update pack built in. Like that's gonna be part of the whole thing. It's all gonna be shipped as one. So
Yeah.
am I paying more for shipping for that? I wouldn't really know. It's probably hidden in there somewhere. You know what I mean? Um,
so
and
you're getting new content
yes,
as well.
you're getting new content as well, for a game that you've scratched the surface of because you were able to at least give it a shot with the first edition and go, that I like where they're going with this. Let's see what they can do, kind of thing. Um, and then of course you have to wait for that second edition to come. So then of course you get your next problem. When do I play it? Well, not now. I'm going to wait for the next edition. I mean, that was my biggest problem with Madara is they kept saying like, oh yeah, here's the game. Oh, by the way, we're going to do this update pack in like 6 months. I'm like, well, I guess I'll wait for the update pack. Look, here's the update pack. Now we're doing the Act 3 and Act 4, and it's going to have some update packs. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm waiting for that update pack. I mean, you know what I mean? And I feel bad because then people go to try to learn these games, and believe it or not, they kind of watch some of our videos to figure out how to learn these games, right?
Yeah.
And then they're watching my first video of Madara going like, are you sure that guy could block with that? I think in the rules it says this. I'm like, well, the third rule book will definitely mean that I couldn't do that. That's for sure. But this was the one first edition rule book that said I could do it. So you have to make it like I've almost gone back and edited those videos, say like with first edition rules, with 1.2 edition rules, because they've adjusted the rule books, like Steve says, balancing, because that was the biggest thing with that game was balance, because there's the world is your oyster in that game, and so people are able to instantly find like ways of being able to meta the system, and so they had to try to rip those walls down and rebalance some of the stuff that was coming out, and that's kind of why they had a lot of these updates now. And I mean, yes, it's good because the game doesn't get walked on, but in the same vein, there's people out there like me that don't meta the game. So now it almost feels like, do I need to meta the game in order to get through this game? I mean, because apparently if I don't, then I might just get bogged down in death. And death is no fun in campaign games. unless you got fail forward, then it's okay.
You have an
So,
interesting point, Bairnt. About having the expansion include the updates, and that happens a
mhm.
lot. Is that
Hmm.
always a good thing? Is there a chance that like maybe you just want the update pack and you don't want the new expansion?
Or what about this? Put your steel hat on or tinfoil hats. What if they made the first edition knowing there were problems in it so that they could
Oh.
edition so that you would get the update pack, but you would back their second edition of the expansion so that you could get the update pack included in it. They already had it. Boom!
Bairnt, I think
There
you're
you
onto
go.
something
You
here.
nailed it.
Oh, I'm either onto something or I'm on something. One of the two, right?
No, but it does bring up an interesting angle, though. It's often is about the money is always, of course, a factor in whether or not you bring an update pack or an expansion or whatever not, and especially the timing is also very right. This is maybe a topic for a whole nother co-op chat, but like if after a year when people are starting to get their delivery of their first edition, so to speak, there is another crowdfunding, whether it be on GameFound or Kickstarter, and that is already in the works, and they plan to bring out like an expansion on it. That of course is all very orchestrated. It's very much like it's about timing and about getting the right publicity and getting the content out, and then launching their exciting new expansion that of course everyone is like hyped up about. But then, of course, if a game is not well made in the first edition, you might get like a lot of backlash, and that might like
Mm.
be at the forefront of a lot of people's talks about how a game is or not. And so then, of course, on the creator side, this whole struggle then all of a sudden comes into play of like, okay, so people are not talking really great about our game, so what are we going to do about this? Should we bring like an update pack and then offer it for free, excluding shipping, of course, and then get those people on board as well? So yeah, I don't know what the answer on this would be, but like I feel like a lot of games that have maybe garnered a lot of criticism for their first edition, Harakiri. Just no, I'm just
Well,
joking. I guess
that's
Harakiri is a perfectly fine game.
it's a great game, but you are 100% correct on that. When they even reached out to me to do a video on it, they told me what mission to do, which is why the video you see what you see of mine are on there. And you saw the video where I sit there and go, "We never found this card. I don't know how to get this." And then
Right.
I sent the video to them and said, like, here's the video I did. You go ahead and use it. Like, oh, it was a great video. Oh yeah, we just realized that we put the map from our playtest in there, not from the actual game. I'm like, what? What? Why would what? Where was and you told me to do that mission and you didn't catch that? I mean, that's the one you wanted me to put out. I mean, it was a weird situation, but I do think this is an example. 100%. I'm not saying bad things about this game. If you see it's still in my collection, I'm not getting rid of it.
Oh yeah, I love it as well. I love it to bits.
Part of it. I think it's really cool. I like the game, but it's one of those, like you said, that if this was not your jam and you were kind of on the fence on this one, having that 1.0, it's going to be it almost going to be a bad effect to wanting you to get that second edition. Where there are games out there that when you play the first edition, you're like you can kind of go like as you're playing it, you can see like there aren't as many glaring errors, so it's almost like you said, Steve, you can almost forgive some of that stuff to get that update pack, where this one I think almost went too far in the other direction, where it's kind of like, crap, we're going to lose some people because this did have a little bit too many of those issues with it. But I mean, on the flip side, you're going to see Dawn of Madness right here. This one came through, and through all the stuff that it did, it took a while to get to people, and it's still getting to people. I think I might be wrong. This company almost went the exact opposite route. They sent this game out. People were playing it, and everybody went, "What is this?" And instead of going like, "This is the game,"
I felt like I needed a math degree for the game at first. What's happening here?
And they actually went through and ripped the entire thing down and started from scratch, and then went through a bunch of playtest mode. They kind of did it the way you're kind of supposed to. You make the game, sending it through different playtests until you're ready to go. I mean, and I think that's part of the thing is when you're getting first and second editions, when you're getting play testers, they almost all need to be blind. I think that would really help because you're giving them, like you said, that rule book. Do I understand the game with this rule book? Can I play this game with this rule book? I know I've talked with Mike and Peter about their first game, and they had kind of a balance issue with it when it first came out. Was it the Silk Road or something, Steve? Was that the name of the game, or
Salvation Road?
Thank you, Salvation Road. And they're like, and they realized when they're going through the process that, oh my gosh, I can kind of see where people are saying, because we've played this 742,000 times. We see every way of being able to win this game, but people have never played it before could really find this difficult. I think that also happened to me in, what's that game you have? That's the 4X game where you're kind of fighting against two different forces on each side. Uprising. I tried to play that. I died like every turn one. And they put the designer, and the designer's like, oh, let's try this. Let's do this. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to win this game. How the heck did we do that?
Yeah. There's definitely I think what you're talking about, Bairnt, is another topic I want to dive into more detail. But like this, I'll mention a little bit here. But the tendency of when you're designing a game and you're getting into the nuts and bolts of it, you play this a ton of times. That tends to lead to need to ramp up the balance or the skill to make it fun and challenging for that group or for those players.
Yeah.
But then the new people coming in are coming in from ground zero, right? Now you've got this disparity, like where it feels like this game is too hard. I can't do this, right? And that could be a deterrent in a lot of ways. You need to
not for Bairnt. No game is too hard for Bairnt.
Nothing but Uprising.
Just have Colin roll. His luck is ridiculous in the games.
Haven't you seen what I do if I can't figure out how to win a game, or I don't have the ability to win the game? If you know, it's not my collection anymore. Uprising is no longer here.
Yep.
Long gone.
Yep.
Lost, didn't have a chance. Got kicked in the mouth too many times. Out the door.
Is that even possible?
Glorious. I would have looked like a board game guru. not a guy who can't win the game.
There's something you said, Bairnt, or maybe it's both of you actually. Technically,
guru? That sounds pretty awesome. I might start using that.
Guru, yeah. I've been noticing the examples we're bringing up all tend to be of one nature, in the sense that a lot of these examples we're bringing up are all very big games.
Yes.
Lots of components, lots of scope, stuff like that, and all of these are tending. We're bringing up as examples for second editions. Is that a symptom of having a game that is large, unwieldy, and likely to have errors because there's so many pieces in it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think
so.
The more they're going to go against each other.
Yeah. Well, and even if it's not like this sheer amount of components in it and moving parts sort of in the gameplay mechanics, it can also just be something that happens over time. Like certain games, Awakened Realms again, for instance. Again, I love their games. I have to admit, I haven't played very far into any one of their games campaigns, but a common complaint that I hear of is that the longer that you get through a campaign, now I don't know if this applies to Kings of Ruin, for instance, but Tainted Grail is definitely like this, Ether Fields. But the longer you play, the more OP'd or overpowered your characters become, because they just have everything, and then it just becomes a cakewalk. You would hate this, Bairnt, by the way. I don't know if have you played any of their campaigns to the full end?
No, I have not. I mean, it's funny because I was talking off screen with Steve a little bit about Board Game Co. Just did like within the last month or something, did what campaign games I'm getting rid of and which ones I'm keeping, and all his points were absolutely magical, because he's all like, I've got all these great, this is what I love to play, but sometimes my ambition for what I can get done has far outseated how much time I actually have, and I was like, yep, 100%, man.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
So no, I have not played one to full fruition, and yes, I have heard things like, I think that's again one of the hardest things. Like a case in point, bringing back Sword and Sorcery. If you watch Colin's playthrough of Sword and Sorcery, when he got he actually did almost the entire game. If not, I think he did the entire game plus most of the expansions before he finally stopped, because he said, I was basically dishing out as many upgrades to the enemies as I could, and I was still just squashing them like they weren't even, like they would just appear and die. Right. And so he said, I think that's a hard thing to do with the amount of time you have in huge giant campaign games, just to balance things.
Sure.
Right. So now that we've established that,
itself, but then you put your update packs out. Case in point, Madara had a huge balancing issue, and what did they do? They've actually did a fantastic job of now putting levels of enemies. So if you're fighting the sickles in at the beginning, you're fighting them in the mundane level. Then when your loot level goes to common, you're fighting them in the common level. Then the uncommon level. So you're not just fighting the same key sickle. You walk up and just go boonk at the, like when you get about a third of or half the way through the game, you're actually facing a legitimate opponent as you're continuing on. But then again, you got to think, is it worth me having to fight this cave sickle again, or could they have put out a different enemy to fight, kind of thing. So it's lots of things. Man, this is weird. There's so much to think about. I mean, and again, that was one of their that was like an upgrade pack thing they did, was to add these like levels of difficulty. Like Steve says, sometimes it gets too easy for certain groups, but not for others. And then you have to watch out, because you never want to say, if you're having trouble, you can drop down to this easier mode. Because you never want to say that in your games, right? I mean, unless you're playing Duke Nukem, then you can.
Well,
totally bad. You totally have to put that in there for Duke Nukem. Like, oh, I play a Mommy Don't Hurt Me whenever I play that game. I'm totally.
So now, Bairnt, we've already established, and I think offline as well, is that you love your games difficult as all get out. I love my games as easy as all get out, because I will just be like, I will cheating. Like, I can say, like, on the record here, I'll be cheating just to get past the difficulty and just enjoy the story. But so now, Steve, you're not only literally right between us right now, but like, where do you stand on like a game being whether, too hard and being broken, or too easy and being broken, and requiring like a 2.0 version on this? Like, how was Sword and Sorcery for you, for instance?
I enjoy if I put in the time and effort to make my character powerful, to feel powerful in games.
Yep.
I need to have the challenge up front, though, to make it fun for me to get that point. But if I put forth the effort and I'm OP, let me be OP. So lots of games I enjoy do this type of thing. Street Masters is one of them, honestly. Where like the beginning of the game, you're like really struggling. Like, wow, there's so many guys can barely keep up. And at the end, you like one-shot these enemies, and you can totally like gamma slam the boss, and I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. So a little bit of between in that sense, but yeah.
So basically saying you would love zombie-side games, and any kind of game that Simon brings out, where a ton of enemies coming towards you, and you just like blam, 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 shoot them all on all sides.
Maybe I just like having a high power ceiling. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So I talked to Colin about this, and I think Colin and Steve are very similar in this aspect, because Colin and I talk about this quite a bit, about like the difficulty versus getting too powerful and things like this. And he always thinks of it as this, and I completely agree with it. And this, I totally understand how this works now. He likes to struggle at the beginning until he can get to that tipping point, and where he feels like, okay, I got this game now. Like Steve says, he's building himself up to VOP, and then he knows he's going to win, because he's got the ability now where he's like, there's really no way they can stop me, but this is going to be awesome. But the thing is how long you stay in that position that gets to me. Like, I can't play a game in this position for too long. I don't mind all this getting there and actually getting to that point. I think it's kind of cool to be like, yeah, I'm super awesome. This is fantastic. But I want that game to end like the next turn or one after that. I don't want to be sitting there going like, okay, one boom, 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 like for the next like 5 rounds. Like Lord of the Rings living card game is similar to that, where you're kind of working hard at the beginning. You got these cards coming out. You're trying to figure out how to deal with this. But then eventually, if you get enough of your cards out and things, you can kind of get that tipping point. You can kind of see where the game is going. But Lord of the Rings does it great, because usually within that time, if you've gotten to that point, the game's usually over by the 1 or 2 turns after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where the struggle is super great. And you can even see the struggle going back and forth in that game, which is pretty awesome, where it's like, oh, I think we're going to get that tip, and nope, this is bad. He just came out, kind of thing. Or, oh, we flipped over the card and something terrible happens. So I think that's I think more the kind where I'm the person that loves this struggle. And then if that struggle tips me back, again, having to struggle back up, I don't like getting to that point being like, okay, the game is over, I just have to get to the end. I like that back and forth.
So I want to add to that a little bit, Bairnt.
Please.
To that comment, because then Derrick mentioned it here. It's called Steving the game for a reason. Yes.
Yes.
I will have a tendency of like, and Kim knows this. I feel a bit bad for her sometimes. She'll come down, sit down, because I've got the game set up, and I'd be like, oh, and we're adding these things to make it more challenging. These things as well to make it more challenging. Like, why are we doing this? Like, I want to see what happens. We've experienced that easier start. Let's do a harder start and see what happens.
I can totally get behind.
Doing the gauntlet for Marvel United, where we threw in all the challenges in one game to see how long we'd last. That was really, really fun.
See, as long as we bring something new to the table, I'm all for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Remy does bring up a point. He says, but don't you also want the final boss to be a challenge? Well, yes, and that's kind of where I come in. I want, like, even if I've gone that tipping point, I want to come back to where I'm fighting the boss, and also now I have a big struggle again to try to get through this boss. And who knows? Maybe I've gotten to that tipping point again where it's okay. I've cut off 3 of its legs. It doesn't have any innards anymore because I ripped out its intestines. So I think I got this kind of thing. But I don't want to be like, okay, I'm super powerful. Let's go fight the boss. Boom, boom, done. Like, what was the boss?
That makes sense.
I've played games like that, and I'm just like, that was ridiculous. Why did? And one of the games that actually does it pretty well is right here on the ground, Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire does this really well because you play for a while, you're like, oh, okay, we'll get to the boss. There it goes. Okay, the boss has 120 hit points. Oh, what? Yes, how many hit points? How are we going to get through this boss? And Madara did this really well too. The first boss you find, you're fighting cave sickles like 8 health, 16 health, 16. Oh, I'm fighting Waterloo. It's got 12 health. Okay. Also, the first boss you fight 150 hit points. Like, what? Yeah. What am I going to do? I don't know if you remember that, Steve, but remember when we flipped over the card? It was like 150 hit points. Like, how am I going to beat this?
I remember distinctly playing Slay Spire with you one of the first times, and you're like, "Oh, this game's too easy." Get to the boss, you're like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, because I remember telling you, like, "Just wait, don't worry, just wait, hold on, ramp up, trust me."
See, this mirrors exactly my experience with Divinity Original Sin. Like, I was playing this with a friend of mine, and we played it from beginning to end. And each time when we encountered a boss, it was like 5 times the number of hit points and the stats of any other enemy. And we're like, oh my, or we're just going to lose. Like, I'm just ready to throw in my hand of cards and call it a day. But my friend was a min maxer, or still is. And he would just min-max the heck out of the whole situation. And at the end, we had no problem slaying every single boss in the first go. And so this kind of brings it full circle to, like, does that game need a second edition? Does it need to be made harder then? Or are you able to break the code of how the gameplay actually works? Because that's kind of how it felt. And so, I don't know. I had a good time personally, but my friend was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of done. I don't have to see all the other branching paths of the narrative and where the game goes. I played the game from beginning to end. I had no problem. He basically Bairnted the game. I'm putting it down right here. He Bairnted the game.
I'm at this point of the firm belief that there is too much self-pressure, I want to say, on designers to try to balance the game to the group's likings. I think there should be more of a desired or more of an intention to add levers for groups, because I think there's way too many groups out there, and some groups are going to have synergies that work well for how you approach games, how you play. I think this happens a lot where and I remember there's a really good video. I should find a link to it, but Rodney Smith from Watch It Play, he brought a game, and what game was it exactly? It was one of the new games from who did Scythe?
Stonemeyer?
Stonemeyer, yeah, Stonemeyer Games. One of the new games. I can't remember which one it was. But he brought this on
not Charterstone, probably.
What's that?
Probably not Charterstone.
No, it wasn't that one. It doesn't matter. The game's not that important. But he brought this to the Dice Tower cruise. He sat down with a group, and he sat down in a group, and the groups came away with saying, "Oh, there's one faction. It's way too OP. It needs to be rebalanced." Okay, cool. Sat down with another group, and they're like, "Oh, this other faction's way too OP. Yeah, it's too overpowered, right? Blah blah blah." And he kept saying this
probably
through the whole. Which one?
Tapestry.
Yes, Tapestry. That's the one. Yeah, that's the game. And it was interesting because he came back from this thing like, well, all these groups said there was a different faction that was OP, and why is that? And kind of his conclusion, I think this is probably spot on, is there are certain factions or designs or approaches to characters that naturally align to your tendencies, like how you would approach the game, and it makes it easier for you to build up or feel like it works well for you in that sense, right? Support character for me, right? Like, give me a support character. I feel good with that one. Give him something that does lots of damage. He's good with those, right? So
preferably stealth.
So anyway, long story short is, if I'm playing one of those characters that naturally aligns to my tendencies, the game might feel easier in that moment. I might need to ramp it up. If I play against something outside my wheelhouse, it might feel harder. I might need to ramp it down. So even within the same grouping, having the levers to adjust it helps a ton. And Keep the Heroes Out, I got to playing most all of that actually recently, which was fantastic. But they added these rookies. We can adjust it very easily. And so I was playing with my son, and The bosses had different difficulties as well, and it was so great to be able to adjust that based upon our playstyles and our characters we're using to set that challenge to the proper challenge we needed at the table. So anyway, long story short, give us levers to adjust difficulties. I think that's going to help a lot in the long run. Because getting back to Bairnt's thing, like if Bairnt's having it too easy, flip a lever, add the hard stuff in there, and then you can customize the experience to keep you going.
And we'll have a whole year's worth of delightful videos of Bairnt just saying like, "Oh, awesome! I just got killed again," and then it's just those are my favorite all-time videos. It's just when Bairnt is just like he just bites right through the frustration and just like, "Whoa, this is just awesome! Look at how much blood is all over the table right now. It's just my characters will never come back from this."
I actually do enjoy that. I like seeing my guys like, "Oh no, this is no good. My guy's gonna get ruined. Oh, he's gonna get back. That's amazing. He's dead. That's amazing."
Yeah. Oh man, and plus that makes it easy to do extra life videos where the viewers can flip the switches for us, right? So...
Oh yes. Which I still have to figure out how to do a live view party because that I never thought was going to happen. But then when 150 aliens were on the board at one point, next thing I know, I'm in charge of doing a watch party. We'll see how to do that.
Too fun. There's one topic we haven't discussed yet about the first and second editions. I wanna breach a little bit here. Is I feel like so far the conversation has stemmed to more of the crowdfunding approach, right? Mm-hmm. Which I think is very common, or most common to have these first and second editions. I think it's very appropriate in that space. However, I think there's also maybe more the retail side, or maybe the longer release side, where I think an example here would be Defenders of the Realm came out with a Legends Retold, for example, and that's been 10 years since the first version of it, right? And we haven't discussed that yet, where games have been out, they've been fine, maybe that one did have some additions, some upgrades, who knows? But now we have a new version of it. Runebound's another example. Runebound first, second, and third edition, or Descent, right, for example, had different editions as well.
Arkham Horror.
What's that?
Arkham Horror.
Arkham Horror, exactly. How do you guys feel about those additions to games? Do you is that something you get excited about? Is that something you feel like replaces it, or something maybe you would want to have more than one of them in your collection? I'm curious.
What do you think, Mr. Marcel?
Well, I'm probably very biased because I used to love Fantasy Flight games to bits. I've since stepped over from them to mostly crowdfunding games, Awaken Realms and others. But yeah, I don't know. Fantasy Flight games is an interesting one because they have that iterative design process, right? Between not just games in the same line like Descent. First edition, second edition, and then the big leap to Descent Legends, which probably the less said the better at this point.
Maybe not always a good change.
No, but that's exactly my point. Is like iterative design can also sometimes just go completely off rails. Sure. You see that sometimes with Simon as well. Is that they build upon the previous designs, and that goes well to a point where either it becomes maybe repetitive and stale and people say like, well, you're just doing the same thing over and over again, or they actually just push it too far and it breaks. And so, yeah, a first and second edition is, especially in Fantasy Flight games, personally, I think has always gone well. It's often when they sort of make that IP leap from one theme to another, like for instance, what is it called again? The Elder Sign, the dice rolling game that they had, when they made the leap to Marvel, and then they had X-Men. God help me out here. Resistance, I think it was called.
Yeah, it was Resistance.
Oh yeah, X-Men Horrible. Yep, got it.
X-Men Horrible.
Yeah. Right. Like, I don't think anybody loved that game. They were just I
honestly shouldn't say that. I've never played it. I can't.
I actually haven't either. So I'm just going on what I hear from other people. But I had no incentive to even buy it after that. And I'm a huge X-Men fan.
Colin had it for I think a minute and a half, and then it went out the door.
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
So I again, like I've only designed one game in my entire life commercially. I'm not into like various versions. So, but like, I don't know what plays in designers' heads when they know where the balance lies between improving upon a design and making a good iteration. Like for instance, Mansions of Madness 1 and Mansions of Madness 2 with the app in it. That was great. But then, Descent Legends, like I said before, very app heavy to a point where people were just like, what are you doing, Fantasy Flight Games? I don't know. What are your thoughts about this? I mean, where's the balance?
There's actually a few things in the chat that are working that are absolutely amazing. Yogi Bear did mention the Mention of Madness thing that you just did. Avis actually says is it just additions or are they different games in the same play style? And this, when it comes to a lot of stuff we're talking about right now, like the ones we gave as examples of, I would say yes, they're same games but with different styles. Like if you play Arkham, was it the Arkham Horror 1, 2, and 3? They're all technically different games. Yeah. Same theme, same thing, but they're different games. They're not really additions. You know what I mean? But Mansion Madness 1 and 2, I believe, are very similar. It's just a matter of what they've done that kind of adjusted the game. Right. One game that I've been playing actually I'm about to play again is I am dragging out my 1984 version of, or is it 1980 something? Anyway, in the 80s, my version of Axis and Allies with my son this afternoon. We're going to play a game of Axis and Allies. I used to play this all the time in college, and he's excited to try this out. But now here's a game that has multiple editions. They have 2 different anniversary editions, which minus the stuff like War in the Pacific, Africa, War in those are, I would say, different games. But now you've got these Axis and Allies, you've got the anniversary edition, you've got the upgrade anniversary edition, and they added things to it, but it's still technically the same game. A lot of the rules and stuff haven't really changed, like the core mechanics of the game haven't really changed. Where in the Arkham games, I think they kind of did some of the between 2 and 3 and things. I think there's some differences in how the game plays, where in this one they're really not. It's still technically the same game. You're trying to take over both of Axis powers, or the Axis trying to take over 2 allied powers, or they get economic victories and things like this, and they've just either added things to it. Now, is my game obsolete now? No. I can still play Axis and Allies, the original, and have a great time. So right. And like Remy says, X-Wing 2.0 also came out, another thing that I have played, so I can talk about it. I used to play X-Wing like bonkers. I played all of. I've got. Yeah, I mean, I could probably. I will. While you guys are talking, I'm going to dig all my stuff out. I've got X-Wing upon X. In my curio cabinet back here, I've got one shelf that has 2 Millennium Falcons, the cruiser from. I'm going to forget all these names of ships, and I'm going to get just blasted by the Star Wars community.
True Star Wars fan. I
know, I'm a true Star Wars fan. The Carillion cruiser, I think is what it is, from the original Star Wars. It gets sucked up into the Star Destroyer. Then I've also got a Bosk ship. I've got all these big giant ships out here. I've got the one that can carry 4 X-Wings on it and stuff like this. So I've got tons of X-Wings. So I can talk about how this went. So we used to play X-Wing, the first version, with my friend forever. The second edition came out, and we had to buy, like you said, the upgrade packs. But since then, the game, and that was almost like a complete rebalance. It's like, okay, we're going to take 6 years and rebalance all of it. And it actually worked really well for them. It actually worked really well. But it did take a while for that to come out. And now, but again, I had to buy but there you go. I had to buy the upgrade pack, which was $39.99 for each faction. So if I wanted to play the ally or the good guys, I guess they're good guys, or the bad guys, are they bad guys? I had to buy the upgrade packs for those, right? And then I had to buy one for Scum and Villainy, and I had to buy, so
those would technically be bad guys,
right? So it helped. I think it really helped the community because you got away from it rebalanced everything that made the meta differently. So I think when you got second editions like those coming out, that's something where in like Action Allies, it really hasn't done a lot. They've just added stuff but had to balance it. If you don't have Action Allies balance, that game is just going to be a garbage fest. That has to be almost the most balanced thing. I mean, obviously dice rolls are going to change it, but that initial setup has to be super balanced or it's going to be a really hard sell. Sure. Going through the iterations, they kept it balanced. They kind of kept the rules very, very similar as it goes. They've added some stuff here and there to make it cool. But but the other ones we're talking about, so this is why they call me like off-topic Bairnt a lot.
Never happens.
I'm not really sure where I was going with this.
Never happened, Bairnt.
You're like the Cthulhu game with the train that goes off rails. Well, not off rails, but like with all the monsters attacking it from all sides. All kinds of stuff is happening.
Kind of like Resident Evil when you're on the train in Resident Evil 0.
Oriental Express?
Yeah. You got it, Steve.
So anyway,
we talking about getting off track
in second editions and things like this. Like when you have a true second edition of a game,
it's Bairnt first edition getting off track. Me Second edition, getting off track.
You got Steve, the railroad conductor, who's kind of moving. Come on, guys, come on.
It's not working. That's it. Horror
Abandon
the Orient
ship,
Express.
abandon ship.
That's a Yogi. I knew it was something close to that.
Thank you, Yogi Bear.
But another one is like Horrified, where they are those different iterations of the games, or are those fully basically different games going forward? That's
Right.
Yeah, it gets a little bit different. Like X-Men United, right? You can talk about the different seasons, right? Are there's upgrades? Are they second editions? Kind of not. I don't know. It gets kind of weird territory. But it's a tricky one.
Oh, Bairnt's getting his games.
Yep, you're gonna see it now.
Gosh.
Whether we want to or not.
Back here in the back.
Sorry,
So
Steve.
there is a game coming up with a second edition core set, which is I'm looking forward to, and that's Marvel Legendary. Love this deck building game, but they've been making content for this game for more than 10 years now. And
I
it's
was
been
about to say,
like
that's a long.
clockwork. What's that?
It has a long history, that game.
Long history, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good example to bring up because people are excited about it, but people also a little bit nervous. But because we have 10 years worth of content, and you bring in a second edition, and this is something we haven't discussed yet, is how do
Compatibility.
you still honor or make the original customers happy, and especially with Legendary, because you have all this content. If they were, and then that's not happening, just clarifying this out, if they would come out with a second edition that, okay, all your previous content no longer works, that would cause like pitchforks and torches and everything, people up in arms, right? Look, they are very much making this is a new entry point for people to jump into, because this game is, I mean, it's 10 years ago. Like there's some subtle improvements they can do to it. For example, artwork, for example, upgrades and stuff like that, which I think is a brilliant idea. And not to mention, because the core set is kind of hard to keep in stock now, they have a new SKU. It'll drive new customers into it. So I think this sounds like a really, really great idea. Honestly, I'm very excited for it.
Are they bringing new design changes to it as well?
Not majorly, no. And they are tweaking, I think, a few of the cards, because I know in the original core set they made it so that it was pretty easy, honestly, like really easy. Like you hit a bad guy and you get good stuff out of it. So they're tweaking that, because every set after that made it a lot harder. Like the bad guys were difficult to play, and long story short, the community as a whole plays this game cooperative. Like they try to make this like semi-co-op thing. They still try to do it, but like if you look at the polls out there, like people do play competitively. It's out there for sure, but like by and large, everyone plays a co-op.
Interesting.
So like they're trying to like lay into that more with this new design, which I think is a
new
cool
angle
way of
and,
approaching it. But
yeah. Sorry, Bairnt, we were just talking about the new version of Myth coming out, Myth 3.0.
Yeah, you were.
You missed all of it.
There is a new version of Myth coming out. Watch out.
Yeah. But yeah, the cash grab, exactly, Joe. Especially like if you
something out, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. If you were to like rush out a project and then like, oh wait, we're gonna redo all this stuff, and it would just feel really, really crappy to those people who have supported you. And I think that's the main thing we're trying to avoid, right?
And I think that's the moral of the story, right? It's
Right.
just like whether it's crowdfunding or established publishers, once you start rushing it and you don't like have a solid foundation, you're going to end up with like update packs, or you're going to end up with, Descent Legends. Sorry that I keep bringing it up. There's obviously no trauma there.
Tell us how you really feel.
No, mind you, and I love the designers as well, by the way, who went on to make Earthborn Rangers. So obviously they're talented.
Right.
So but no, you just when it feels rushed, whether it's like the organization or the company behind it trying to push out a new project because it's almost Christmas or something like that, or when a crowdfunding creator just creates a new game and they're so enthusiastic to get it out. I know how that feels. And they push it out and it's not, it's still half baked. It's kind of like, again, I kind of like those projects because I like broken games, but it's not the general population of gamers who loves that kind of stuff. And then you get like, pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
Now we've been talking a lot about all the things that make like sometimes like why we need second editions. What was like some of the bad things that may have happened in the game, or something that didn't work well, or something that was broken, or something that, for example, they were meta the game and things like this. There's not a way to advance it. Now, on the flip side, one of the good things about update packs and second editions in games is the fact that these people are listening to the community.
Yes.
They're listening to us. and they're
Yeah.
making these games better because they're bringing these. Now, of
Right.
course, it would have been great to have these right away, but even some of the like established people are making update packs. Like, I mean, some of the games that I've two humongous games out there are stuff like Aeon Trespass Odyssey, Kingdom Death Monster. Kingdom Death Monster is technically on 1.6. Like they have done updates, and he has listened. He's brought this and had. And if anybody's done playtesting, from what I understand, Poots puts a lot of effort into these games, into his Kingdom Death Monster game, right? And so this has been. He's been working and balancing and playing and all these things. Like you said, the bigger games sometimes have a little bit harder ability to be able to keep that balance going. And he noticed like one of the monsters wasn't being fought enough because of some certain, like it just wasn't worth it or something. So he brought that up a level to make it more of, and the gear for it to be more something you'd want to battle. So he wants like so I was really impressed to see that even though that game was so great, he still was seeing that it wasn't. And that he's bringing it forward. With my Aeon Trespass Odyssey, I just got the second shipment, and I actually totally forgot there was going to be an update pack in it because I didn't need an update pack. But they did. They brought in this update pack. It's really actually a lot smaller than I thought it would be for a game that massive. So
I think Robin is now writing down definitely too many games.
we need more. That's the problem. Actually, we've been kicking some out the door lately. Actually, that you're talking about Descent 3rd Edition, and it went out the door. It's not here anymore because I just, again, thinking more on the lines of what Board Game Co. was talking about. It's like, am I going to have the time to be able to put towards a game, some of the games, when I've got other games that I really haven't finished yet that I want to finish? So anyway, the good point about these update packs is that they're listening to us. They're trying to find the way to make these games better for the community. It's not just like, here's my game, love it. It's like, oh, this game has these issues with it. Don't care, made my money, I'm good, see you, bye.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
That's
so
definitely
nice when things are, then they're doing these. Like another one is ISO Farian Guard. He heard the community, he kind of listened to what they were saying, and he went through this game and kind of gave some extra things to it to give people the kind of experience that they originally were thinking were going to be in the game, and now he's giving them the opportunity to add that stuff to it to make that experience. Stars Vicarios is coming out.
I mean, the extra cardio of lifting the update pack that was almost as heavy as any kind of like workout that you would do.
That
was a lot of
nothing's as big as that trove chest that I tried to get out the door when I had it. Oh my gosh. I think I paid like $200 in shipping for that thing to get out the door. It was out of control. Anyway.
Or Tenaris Adventures. I mean, when that update pack came and it had 3 big spiral-bound books in it that replaced the original 3 spiral-bound books, I was like, what are you doing here? I'm a 50-year-old man. I can't lift these update packs anymore.
But it's good to, like I said, it's good to see, because a lot of these come from first-time publishers or publishers that haven't really gotten established in, so they want to have their games be enjoyed by the community. And so being able to give these update packs and giving like even expansions with update packs included gives the community a chance to hopefully play the game that we're expecting to get, or that is written well enough for them to experience and to enjoy. I hope that makes sense.
It definitely does.
Yeah, for sure. There's another game that I think is a good example of listening to the audience as a whole. Was Zombicide, actually.
Is that U-Boat? Is that the one?
No, not U-Boat.
U-Boat?
Well,
no.
We got to mention that because we got to take the other drink, right? You got Myth going into U-Boat, right?
I'm waiting for you to talk about U-Boat because they put out a new Kickstarter. Come on. Where's your U-Boat comment?
I don't think that really is the second edition. Well, I guess the app is getting updated.
It's coming out, right?
That's right. No, Zombicide I think is a really interesting example. Because the very first one, there's a modern setting Zombicide, because there's a lot of different versions of it, of course, out there, which is another thing we talked about. But where the rule was, when I attacked, if there was a player in the area, I would hit them first, and there was like, this is dumb. Why would I shoot my friend when the zombies are there, right? And so, like, there were so many, like, people house ruling this and just changing it up. And lo and behold, second edition comes out, and guess what? That rule got adopted into the new version. Like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing what the whole, all the public's doing. So, like, it was obvious they were listening, and when they make that change, which was nice. So,
which is why it's so important that as a community we keep on like bringing these topics up, because you're right, they have an ear on the wall and they're listening to these kind of things.
For sure.
100%.
For sure. I think that's all the topics I had for this. I know I've been running a little bit long here, so.
But if we have more, we'll come back with the second edition of this talk, right, Steve?
All my TIE fighters. I've got TIE fighters in here. I've got I've got a whole bunch of crap in here. What do I got in here? These are my TIE fighters. I got TIE bombers. I've got TIE strikers. I've got my Whisper in there. I got my X in there.
Bairnt can show off stuff. I can show off.
You can show off stuff.
It's a second update pack that I got.
That's
Second one. I didn't even need one.
Here's my Slave 1 and some more TIE fighters and things like that. I got way too much of these things. That's how it works.
I got a bunch of it next to me too, actually, Baron. So
I've got my
cute Charlotte's favorite toy.
You guys in here, I've got so many X-Wing fighters. I just about want to drop them on the floor. I've got A-Wings, I got B-Wings, I've got C-Wings, I got L-Wings, I got M-Wings, I got T-Wings, I've got my
Train
wings,
going off rails.
everything. And then like they're saying, you get the update pack, you don't use half of it. I mean, these are all the stuff I didn't need. I didn't need these. I don't have the ships.
Bairnt, Robin is
Awesome.
still watching.
She knows I have all that.
I know, but
That was back when like my friend and I would play either X-Wing or we would play what do you call it, Hero Clicks, and we kind of thought about it as like us going to the bar, because like we'd buy like a couple packs of Hero Clicks, which cost about $15. It's like, well, we can go to the bar and spend that money on beer, or I could buy a pack of Hero Clicks. We could together play some Hero Clicks all night. Sure, let's do that. Or it's like, oh, I got that. I'm going to buy a new X-Wing fighter, and I'm going to come and play X-Wing with you. Okay, sounds good. But like us going to the bar on the weekend.
sorry, Bairnt. You have a new fan in Joe. He thinks
Oh,
you're so
yeah?
cute, showing off your favorite toys.
I always show off my favorite toys. Where did you get those marvelous toys? Isn't that what he says?
Oh, we're all playing with these toys. So
The beer
we
here's
just wanted
almost
the best version to be
bad.
first or second edition.
Exactly. Okay. I think we're pretty good at wrapping this one up. And then they also bought the beer to have that whole while they played. So
But we want cheap beer.
that's right.
We want cheap beer. We picked up hams.
Oh.
Too good. All right.
Like my dad
Good
said.
chat, guys. And Marcel, I love having you on for this one.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
For
Damn
sure.
it.
appreciate
Like my
it.
dad always said, until you start buying beer, you're not going to appreciate hams. Then you start appreciating hams.
Baron, I did want to give you a opportunity to share what's coming up for your channel.
Oh, what's coming up? In theory, Warcrow is going to happen when I can figure out what app to use it on. So I was talking to Steve offline about this. I was just going to record Warcrow last night, but I realized I needed the app. Like, okay, so I went to the computer to download it. Nope, can't put it on a computer. You can only put it on a tablet or a phone. And we only have one tablet in the house that can run it because apparently you can't put it on a Kindle. So the only tablet we have is an iPad, which my wife uses to watch shows at night or to read books and things like that. So I'm like, it's not fair to me to grab her iPad. That's bogus. So I had to find an old phone that we don't use and connect it and power it up. And now I have the app on the phone. But I'm like, really? Why can't you put it on the computer? Come on. So sadly, Warcrow is taking a little bit of time to get done because you do need an app to play it. And recording apps is kind of hard. So anyway.
Derrick says you can use Steam.
Oh, you get on Steam. Well, why didn't somebody tell me that? Where were you last night, Derrick? Fail.
You should be at my house. Tell me how to do this.
Fail. Epic fail.
It is my tablet,
It is
Robinson.
your tablet. This is true. This is true, 100%. So Warcrow, I'm going to work on hopefully today, tomorrow, and I'll definitely work on it. Hopefully get it done by Tuesday, which Kyle and I are going to get together and we're going to discuss all the games we played on the channel, and all the games we did on the channel, and we're going to talk about if we where they stand with us now. Because sometimes
Derrick calling you out, Baron. I'm sorry. You pull me all the time. Why not call me on this?
Derrick, you're supposed to have your spidey sense go off, going Baird stomping around his basement, wondering why the heck he can't record this because he doesn't have a way of doing it. I should message him and tell him it's on Steam.
Mm.
Come on. Now I'm going to be able to record it. Now that makes me happier now. I can actually record it.
Good.
So yes, so
I
we're
think
doing
Robin
that.
and Derrick were conspiring against you, honestly.
I'm sure.
They were just setting this up.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, you can use, what is it? You can use Window on Mac to use Android. Okay, see, some of these things are saying words that I don't know. Help me. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, you could use emulator.
I know how to turn this on, and I know how to hit the go talk to Steve button. That's about all I know on some of this stuff. I'm a nurse. I'm not a technology guy. So I can tell you all about the way the human body works, but the computer?
You're basically the Star Trek Bones of gaming. Damn it, Steve!
I'm a
I'm
board
a
gamer, not a
doctor, not a physician. Oh no, that's a
board gamer, not a doctor.
I'm not a wordsmith, so
Something like that. Yes.
Wordsmith. So that's what we got coming up. I'm going to do War Crow. We got and then we're taking pretty much a 3-week break from our live stuff after our end of the year thing. And then next week we're going to do more. Oh, well, let Steve talk about that. That's his channel.
No,
He can
no.
tell me what we're doing.
Good, say it. Do it.
Did I say it? No, I think I alluded to it. I'm prepping them for the big reveal.
Fine. I'll jump in next since you've set it up. So speaking of tech problems, I gotta fix this guy. This is my my other monitor for doing the chat, so I had to like change my setup a little bit today. So but I think it's just the cable I need to replace, so I gotta figure it out. But anyway.
You're not getting Kim's tablet, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not getting Kim's tablet, exactly.
Ain't gonna work.
Time for this one. I want to get Earth Under Siege back to the table. I'll continue that campaign. I got to talk to Kim about this weekend, so that may or may not happen. I'm not exactly sure. But I know what will be happening next week. Monday, Marvel United, because Marvel Mondays. I think we're playing the Skrulls. I was talking to Pickle last night about that, trying to bounce some ideas around, so I think that's what we're going to do.
I hate the Skrulls. Every time I played them in HeroClix, they got to use their scroll roll. And on a 6, you can't target them. You want to know, I had a friend of mine who made a Skrull die. He bought a blank die, and he wrote the word "eat it" on one side, right?
Eat it?
On one of the 6 sides. And he'd roll it, and the "eat it" would show up. I'm like, I hate you so much. And he always loved him. He loved him. And I couldn't target this guy. Okay, fine. I'll shoot back over there. Eat it. And I'm like,
because he shapeshift, yes.
So bad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
these ones are different. These ones,
they don't roll a 6 and you can't target them?
no, you can always target them, but you have to one-shot them, which is different. So we'll have to try them out. But anyway,
I'm
I think we'll
excited
do
to
that
watch
next time.
that, Steve. When are you doing that, Monday?
Monday, yep.
Nice.
That'll be Monday.
Good luck.
Wednesday, I'll be doing a preview for Small Time Heroes. This is a roguelike deck builder game. Very small package. At least I think it's a small package. I expect it to be a small package. Let's put it that way. So that'll be a preview on Wednesday. That is actually launching on Tuesday, that campaign. So we'll do a playthrough Wednesday for that one. And then what Bairnt was alluded to, Saturday is the big co-op chat. So we're going to do Game of the Year discussions. Talking about like our most anticipated game, biggest surprise, most disappointment, or Game of the Years. We'll have that big chat with everyone on Saturday morning. So this time, next week, basically.
Myth, and myth for Bairnt.
Yeah, this is Goose unlocked. No, Chris, but I think we're trying to unlock Goose. I think we're going to. Goose is the cat that has the tentacles coming out, right? So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's coming up. But yeah, we haven't planned to unlock Goose, Chris, because there's a reason for this, and I haven't told Derrick yet. But pets are going to be the answer we need. So he's going to love this. Yes, there's pets in Marvel United, so.
Flurgle, that's right.
The Flurgle, yep. But I do want to mention Marcel, because Marcel also has a channel. I know you haven't posted in a little bit, but it'd be good to plug your channel. So you want to do that?
Oh, wow. Free plug. I like that. Yeah, so I've been out of it for almost a year now, and to a point where I'm actually just going to restart my channel again on a weird 1-year anniversary. The last video I did was the top 10 games of 2023. Go figure. No, but I'm retooling behind the scenes. I'm thinking of basically what I've always wanted to do, just cover games in a way that haven't been covered before. I know that sounds like an impossible mission to fulfill, but yeah, just look at games from a whole different angle. Not explain rules, for instance, but explain experiences and dive really into that kind of role-playing aspect behind it, and do silly voices and play with miniatures in front of the cameras and that kind of stuff. As well as having some more serious design discussions. That would be a second part of it. And the third part would be just to have a sort of a hobbyist view of our hobby, essentially, of just really getting down and dirty with painting miniatures, with building terrain, with also homebrewing rules, and just how can you make, for instance, a second edition of a game superfluous because you can just modify the first edition on your own. So I'm playing around with these ideas, trying to find the right format, and then hopefully in January we'll start up again.
Awesome, love to see that.
Steve, I've got 3 more things real quick.
Uh-oh.
One, the first thing I have to do, I have to apologize to Remy. I'm sorry it took me almost 7 years to realize he's one of the people that helped me start my channel because of all his great myth videos. I feel so bad it took me this long to figure that out. I feel so bad. I apologize. The other thing, now what are the other two?
I don't know. You had 3 things.
Things were.
Oh, Bairnt.
I had one of them. It wasn't eat it, it was suck it. He had suck it dice. That's
Oh, okay. I got it covered.
And then he pointed at me, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I can't target your guy." If you can't tell, this has scarred me for life as well. That I have not beat his Skrull team in HeroClix. It royally made me mad.
You got your work cut out for you, Bairnt.
I had a third one. I barely remember the second.
The second one. Okay. Well, on that note, I think we'll end it. So thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you next time at the guild. Bye bye.
Exploring.